Hi everyone and welcome to another painting tutorial. So today I'm going to take you through how I painted this crystal style blade for my Sternguard Veteran-Sergeant's power sword. So originally this was meant to be a sort of non-metallic metal steel style. However, upon receiving a little bit of feedback and that it looked more like a crystal sword, I definitely agreed after having a really good look at it. I've still got a long way to go before I get to a level of painting non-metallic metal that I'm really happy with. However, I still really liked the style of this blade and I hope you find this tutorial useful today. So over a Mechanicus standard grey undercoat, I'm just going to be using some graphite by scale 75. Now this is from the scale 75 non-metallic metal steel paint set. Has a bunch of cool colours in there and I hadn't really used this paint set a great deal. So I thought it was a really good opportunity to go ahead and practice with these colours. And as you can see, I'm just gradually building up some quartered sections with the graphite. Now, if you don't own this particular set, you could alternatively, instead of the graphite, use Dawnstone. And just continue building up these quartered off sections until you get a really nice smooth finish. And now moving on to Anthricite Grey. Again by scale 75, I'm just going to begin darkening those Mechanicus standard grey quarters. And just gradually working into the graphite as well. And now just taking some of the NACAR by scale 75, I'm now going to mix that in with the graphite. So just a little bit of paint mixed in with the graphite, and I'm just going to gradually begin highlighting the graphite quarters. So as you can see, mostly just through the center and at the top of the blade. And now just going back to the graphite on its own, I'm just going to blend over all of the NACAR and graphite mix. And now just going back to the Anthricite Grey and further darkening the darkest quarters of the power sword. Now, of course, this is one of the wonderful things of a wet palette, just being able to go back and forth between all of these colours and blending them together, and just creating really smooth transitions of colour. It certainly goes a long way in making these sort of effects really stand out, and it makes life a lot easier. So if you don't own a wet palette, I highly recommend that you pick one up. There's a bunch to choose from. I use the Redgrass V2 model, and it's been really, really good to work with so far. But of course, any wet palette will do just fine. And once again, just going back to the NACAR and mixing even more of that into the graphite mix, as you can see. It is really important that you blend these colors together, as if you just do them sort of one by one, you'll find that the jump between the colors is quite a stark difference to one another. So definitely make sure that you blend these colors. And at this point I was pretty happy with how the blends were looking, at least at this stage, so I decided to go ahead and start adding in the edge highlights. So again, this is just with the NACAR and graphite mix. And at this point, this is where the reflections of the blade really start to stand out. So it's one of those things where this sort of a style of blade can be really tedious initially, but once it starts coming together at this point, it's really exciting in my opinion. And as you can see as well, I've just been further highlighting all of the edges of the blade. So don't be afraid to layer these up quite a few times, especially where the most raised areas of the blade are, as we really want to make those the brightest so we can draw as much attention to the sword as possible. And as you can see, just doing a little bit of stippling, some edge highlighting as well, and just really gradually working all of these colors together. And now I'm just going to add some white to the NACAR. So again, by scale 75, however, any white acrylic paint will do just fine. I was really just using the white from the scale 75 set as I wanted to keep with all of those main sort of 4 colors for the non-metallic metal sort of steel. Which again, as I mentioned at the start of the video, was what it was meant to be. However, I was really happy actually with how it had this sort of crystal look. As someone did mention on social media when they saw the blade. So thank you for that feedback, by the way, as it did ultimately give the title for this power sword. Trying to think back, I think specifically the person said it was sort of like a quartz sort of look, so a quartz crystal, which I really liked that reference because I didn't actually think about that at all. But this is a really good example of why practicing things like this is always worthwhile, as originally obviously it was meant to be that non-metallic metal steel, but it ended up being something else entirely, but it was also something that I was really happy with. And yeah, I would like to think as well that this would be something that would happen for other people painting. You know, if you have an idea of something and you go to execute that idea, it ends up being something different, but still something that you're really happy with. I think that's one of the wonderful things of art. There's just so many different avenues it can take. And as you can see, I've just added some scratch highlights as well. Now, it's really important to make sure that you have the miniature in a really comfortable position. I'd highly recommend painting details like this as well in sub-assembly. As you can see, I'm just using a champagne cork, a bobby pin that I'd cut down to size, plugged that into the cork, and a little bit of blue tack there. And I did drill a hole up the arm as well, just to sort of pin it temporarily. And that's allowed me to, as you can see, hold it in a really comfortable position. just to make sure that I can get details such as this in a much easier sort of application, as opposed to having a fully assembled model. And another thing that's pretty important, you really do want to try and get these lines all in the same direction. So as you can see, I haven't really been moving the model around a great deal, just keeping my brush slightly diagonal. And just really taking my time with it as well, and also making sure that the paint is relatively watered down for this, as you certainly don't want these lines to come on too thick. And as you can see, just adding a small amount of stippling effect as well, again just with that white and NACAR mix. So at this point I decided to go back to the graphite and blend through the sword a little bit more. So I added a little bit more water, as you can see, to that mix as it was drying just a little bit on the palette. And now once again just going back to the NACAR. Again, really watered down and just very gradually building up those highlights again. And once again, just going back to the graphite and going over the NACAR. And once again, just using some of the white and NACAR mix just to go back and tidy up those edge highlights again. So again, all of these steps were really just because I personally wasn't 100% happy with how the blade was looking at that point. The finish may very well be different for you if you do try this blade out, and you might be very happy with it the first time. So yeah, these last few steps here were really just because I wasn't 100% happy with the sword, and I did want to include this in the tutorial as opposed to just cutting it out. And here are some photos of the completed power sword. So thank you very much for watching today. If you haven't subscribed already and you like what you saw, please hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video and a comment below of something that you might like to see me do in the near future. And if you want to support the channel further, if you're in Australia, the USA or the UK, if you purchase through one of these stores through the link in the description, it does support the channel. So thank you very much. I will see you again in the next one.